Seth Grove Unleashed.
Hey, it's State Representative Seth Grove. Welcome to another edition of Grove Unleashed. With us is Charlie and Anders. Guys, how are your brackets? Still in it? We don't care about Anders. Anyway, I'm still in it. I got NC State and Iowa State. I got the Wolfpack and I got the Cyclones. Actually, just cut Anders out of the video altogether right now. He's not eligible to have this discussion with us right now.
NBA basketball compared to college basketball, the game itself.
Oh, I can't stand NBA.
It is the college game is so superior to the NBA. And watching basketball for however long, 8 hours yesterday, and watching how beautiful the sport can be on the college level, and then being forced to watch the NBA for the rest of the year,
right.
It's just a travesty.
Number one, I love halves. I love the halves. I do not like quarters.
Yep.
I love the fact that college still follows the rules. Like, I don't know how many clips of NBA players I see. Like, I saw one of LeBron James holding the ball, walking down the court,
yes.
just holding it, walking down, instructing everyone, and then later bound. Like, it just aggravates. So I did stop watching the NBA after they didn't worry about defense and didn't worry about, functionally playing the game as it should be. College is great. High school is great. I wish high school would go to halves. Actually, I wish all of basketball would go to halves. I mean, even the girls, they have quarters. I like the halves.
I love defense.
Yeah,
you have to play defense in the college game.
Right.
Now, there was a pretty bad call last night that went Kansas's way with that block. That was all ball. But, still the fact that...
Sounds like my son. So, yeah, I'm still alive. I got Wolfpack. I got the Cyclones. Obviously, I'm a Kentucky grad. It did not shock me at all that they lost in the first round. They're choke artists. So,
I've always been a UNC fan. UNC and Nova are my two teams. I've got UNC winning the whole thing this year.
Villanova for the sleeper.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
that's a tough side too.
I've got UNC and Houston in the final. But I'm still alive, still hanging on.
Yeah.
I did have Duquesne winning too.
I had Duquesne winning, so I'm pretty good. The first four, I got trounced. I usually do pretty good on those. I got trounced on those, but I'm still hanging in there pretty good. Although I had South Carolina go pretty far. I think I had them to Elite Eight, and they lost last night. So, and then I did have McNeese. They were my Cinderella team. Ugh, that was a rough one. Anyway, speaking of Houston and basketball, there's also a lot of stuff happening in Texas and that southern border. Obviously, we have some of the largest illegal coming over the border. They were down under the Trump administration. Numerous policies. I was at the border when Trump was still in office. We went down there. It was American Legislative Exchange Council board meeting. Our conference was in Austin. We flew by Texas National Guard Chinook down to McAllen. When we got off the plane, hopped in some Customs and Border Patrol cars, headed over to their base, and I'll tell you, it was weird. It really reminded me of Sicario, where they're entering the border. Great gunfight scene. At that point, we didn't get in a gun battle, but the cartel had people watching the airport. Like, I looked over, there was a guy, had a towel wrapped around his face, sunglasses, and he was standing on top of this building, and it was an empty pool. It looked like a community pool or maybe a private pool. It was vacated. And I was like, what's that guy doing up there? He was like, it could be either us watching or it could be the cartel watching. And this was in McAllen. It was in Texas. So we got to the customs border. We got a briefing. Same briefing, actually, Nancy Pelosi got. This is a Monday. She was down Sunday, so we got the exact same. And they had a big chart of all the countries they caught people from. And I have a picture of it, but they basically said, don't tell anybody that all these countries are coming in. I'm like, you should actually tell people, like Iran and Venezuela.
Do you know that tens
Arabia.
of thousands of illegal immigrants from China are coming through the southern border?
Yep. Yeah,
and now they're buying up all the farmland around military bases.
So in 2022, I was actually in Eagle Pass, Texas, where a lot of the news is right now. I was at the park where the boat ramp is, and was standing there with a guy who's an off-duty border patrol. And again, just similar to what Seth was saying, look across the river, and there are people with binoculars that are looking over. And I said to him, "What are they doing?" And he said, "Well, they're trying to see where we are, and they're going to eventually have a bunch of kids, mostly unaccompanied minors, that are being human trafficked for various purposes, and they're going to send them downriver at a point, and then we're going to have to go rescue the children, and they're going to send the drugs in another area where we're not, so that they don't get caught."
Right. And that's the one thing people have to understand. The drug cartel, human capital can be reused multiple times. So whether you get caught and sent back, they're sending them back across. And the whole reason to send them back across is to get the drugs. Now, if you make it, they've made their money getting you across. If you go to one of their safe houses, you have to pay to get out of the house or go into some form of slavery, whether sexual slavery or labor slavery to pay your way out. So it's a horrible process. Most people who get caught are relieved because they break that cycle. And when you are caught, you're brought into a facility. If you're a kid, they have diapers. And I remember at the time, one of our kids was young and still in diapers. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many diapers. But you just go through a lot of diapers with kids.
Vouch for that.
So it was an amazing experience. The Rio Grande actually really isn't that large. Like, it is much smaller than the Susquehanna.
Really?
Yeah, you can easily swim across it. When we went at a park, and there were Mexican citizens swimming, and they were like halfway, and maybe they crossed and swam back and forth. But you could wave hi, they were very friendly. We did a helicopter tour, and I remember the pilot saying, someone asked when we were up with one of the helicopter pilots, and this is Texas Department of Safety, Highway and Safety helicopter pilots, and we asked, like, what is the big thing we can do? Like, what can we do? He's like, you see, and we were looking, there's the wall, there's no wall. Wall safe, no wall, not safe. He's like, that's the biggest game changer we have. 2, having Mexico deal with it on their side, right? Because the entire thing's controlled by the cartel. Both sides are controlled by the cartel. I was told I had lunch with a couple of the highway safety, Texas highway safety guys. They're kind of like our state troopers. He was getting ready to retire. I'm like, aren't you worried? Like, the cartel's going to find you? He's like, they know where we live. They know all the agents. They know our families. They know where our kids go to school. They know all of that. And he's like, they're not going to do anything because they don't want to make a stir on the U.S. side. He's like, now, on the Mexican side, there was a reporter that did a story. They disappeared, and their head showed up 3 months later on the stoop of a police station. Like, that's the type of control they have on the Mexico side. Like, journalists, officers, federal judges, they disappear on the Mexico side. That doesn't happen on the U.S. side because they don't want to draw attention.
They don't want the smoke.
Right. And, do American citizens care that this is happening on the Mexico side? You don't hear about it. It's not reported because they don't want to talk about it. But he's like, I'm not worried. They don't want to cause like that violent trouble on the border. We're the economic side, so they don't want to mess with their economics. And then we took some gunboats. You wonder why Texas has gunboats on the Rio Grande? It's because they will. At one point, they had a tactic of if they were caught smuggling drugs in a car, they'd splash it. They'd meet at a location. They'd splash in the Rio Grande. Truck sinks. They'd bring like boats over. They'd throw all the drugs on the boats, bring it back. So they needed some way to get into the water and stop those from occurring. So they have gunboats. And I'll tell you, when we were at McAllen, we pulled up to this. It looked like a deer trail. It just looked like a deer trail. It was not anything. There was blown out rafts. Do you know the unicorn raft? There's one of them blown up. Like, it wasn't blown up. It was like someone popped it and it was all off the side. They'll use whatever to get across the border. And they said that is the largest, that trail right there brings in more people than any trail in the entire country, right there, that one, at that time. So, and then on the U.S. side, it's like fishing shacks. On the Mexico side, it's mansions, mega multi-million-dollar mansions. One of them, I remember, had this huge tower of water slide, but they were all, I didn't see anybody. He's like, and there's this one mansion, it was like all windows. He's like, every day someone washes those windows. We've never seen anybody live there. We've never seen anybody come and go, but there's a guy that washes those windows every day. He's like, they're watching us. And he's like, we have a lot of activity right now, so don't be surprised if, more people start showing up, because we had, I think, 3 or 4 gunboats and like 4 helicopters in this area. So on our way back, there's this family all in white, all happy, look like they're out on a walk. He's like, we've never seen those people ever. I was like, they were brought in, staged, just to see what's happening. So it's a crazy place. There's a lot of drugs. It is a lot of violence on the Mexico side. People are being used. It's not safe. It's not safe for our citizens. It's not safe for those people coming over legal, particularly in the summer. It's hot.
Oh,
you're walking through deserts.
115 degrees.
Right. It's
Easy.
just not safe. So there's major problems. The one thing I want to address is why the Senate passed a resolution to get the National Guard. Why I say, after my trip, I did an op-ed saying Governor Bush should send National Guard troops down to the border. Why? There's multiple reasons. Number one, when we send National Guard troops down there, and it's federalized, and that's still like feds pay it. We don't have to. It's not an allocation out of our budget. The feds will cover that cost. One, they get training. They get real life training. So if they're ever in a combat situation, if they make a mistake at the southern border, no one dies. But that mistake could cause someone to die in a combat zone. So we talked to a lieutenant from Kentucky National Guard. He's like, this is the best training experience we have ever had. As a unit, as an officer. He's like, I'm a new commissioned lieutenant. Like, I prefer making my mistakes right here. And I know I'm bringing all my guys back, and my guys and girls back, my soldiers back. If I do that in a combat zone, that may not happen. Drones. There's 2 theaters where you can really practice drones. Southern border and in combat. We happen to have Air National Guard that operates drones here in Pennsylvania. Think about an awesome opportunity to get real live missions watching that southern border by utilizing those Air National Guard assets. So it's critically important. And having those National Guard troops they can do the back end stuff and get the custom border agents out there in the field. Because that's the cartel's tactic, right? We're going to send people over, so Customs and Border gets overwhelmed. They have to bring them back, and they have paperwork to do. There's just so much paperwork, processing. Having National Guard, military, I mean, we met people from the Coast Guard, Air Force. They had all branches of the military there trying to help out. It was funny. I was talking to the Coast Guard guys. I was like, where's your boat? They're like, oh, yeah, we're land-based. So it's a scary place. Texas showed us videos. It was one of the major interstates. An illegal stole a truck. He was driving at 90 miles per hour in an interstate. It was a traffic jam. He just plowed it into cars, got out with a broken leg, jumped off a bridge to try to get away, broke his other leg, and he just was crying. I mean, obviously he had 2 broken legs. They caught up to him, but just the amount of casualties and damage to vehicles that caused, it was awful.
Well, the other thing, too, I think, in the National Guard is that if we're sending the National Guard to the border, that is only going to help stem the fentanyl that we're seeing in Pennsylvania. And we know where the fentanyl is coming from. This isn't a big state secret. We know the fentanyl is coming over the border, and we know it's killing people in Pennsylvania. Let's stop it at the source.
Right. It works all around, right? And two, like, we need immigrants to do jobs. Let's be honest, right? There's certain jobs that United States citizens aren't doing anymore. They don't want to do. It's tough to hire. We need them, but we need a process. We need to shut down the border. We need a little easier process for them to get immigration papers so they can come here and work and go back, particularly in the agriculture industry. But but you've got to do the reforms. I go back to Trump's tenure in office. At one point, he offered Nancy Pelosi everything the Democrats wanted. Dreamers, Anchor, the whole 9 yards, right? All he wanted was a wall, and they shot it down.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole argument of Trump's holding up some bipartisan bill, this could have been fixed years ago with a simple deal. He wanted to give them everything they wanted. He just wanted the wall built.
And it's
that border
crazy
secured.
the difference between then and now. Like back when you were visiting, what did they want? They wanted that wall. They wanted extra security.
Right.
If you read now about what these people are asking for, all they want is the ability to do their jobs,
Right.
because the feds won't let them do their jobs. You have people who are coming across the border illegally who are running away from the Texas Border Patrol and running to federal agents. Right. That's wild. That should not be happening.
Right. And it was right after AOC was crying over the kids in cages and stuff.
Yeah. You mean the Obama era
right.
administration
and
rule that Trump ended?
We visited a detention center. It was the most chill place I've ever seen in my entire life. Chill. Everyone was they were just exhausted. They were tired. They were hanging out. Moms were kept with the kids. They didn't break up families. Guys stayed to a side. They were watching Happy Feet in Espanol.
Mm.
Kids were sitting there watching. They got food. They got clothing. If they have medical conditions, it's a problem with the hospitals. They're taken right over to the hospital. So if someone has kidney failure, they're sent to the hospital.
The sad thing is, for a lot of them, that is probably the safest they have ever been in their lives.
Yep.
Is at a detention center in the United States.
Right.
And that's an indictment on Mexico. That's not an indictment on us.
And Venezuela.
And Venezuela.
And all these other countries.
And Iran and all these other countries that they're coming from. And the other crazy thing now is that as Mexico is seeing the U.S. start to reevaluate what's going on at the border, Mexico is now saying that if a foreign national of another country comes in through Mexico to the United States, like someone from China goes in through Mexico to get into the United States, Mexico will not receive that person. They will not receive the Chinese resident. They have to wait in the United States. So Mexico is standing up for their border more than the United States, more than the Biden administration is standing up for our border. And that, to me, it just blows me away.
Right. But that's every other country locks down its borders but us.
Yep.
Well, that's because it's racist if we do it.
Right. You look at the Capitol, during the State of the Union, fences went up.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Shapiro, the governor, put up fences around this Capitol. This week, we had a couple protests. He locked down the Capitol. He locked down the staircase up to his office so no one could get to it.
They arrested people.
Yeah, they arrested people.
He's
He's going to protect himself. Rest of the Capitol, good luck. Good luck, House. Good luck, Senate. Good luck, visitors. I'm going to protect me and only me. To the point of our parliamentarian had to go yell at the Capitol Police and State Police for not letting members up the stairway up to the House floor. He was blocking a path for us to get to the House floor.
In the entire time I've been here, and I'm positive in the entire time you've been here too, I've never heard of the second floor being shut down entirely.
Right.
You couldn't walk up even if you had a badge that said you're allowed to be here.
Right.
And it's a very common theme. I know we weren't planning on talking about this today of I'm going to protect myself, but when it comes to you and your kids, you're out of luck. Look at the bills that they are passing right now at the Judiciary Committee when it comes to firearms.
Right.
They are being protected. People here at the Capitol are being protected by armed security with AR-15s and other semi-automatic weapons. With silencers.
With silencers, high
But
capacity
when
magazines.
it comes to your ability to have those weapons to protect yourself, sorry.
Right.
Sucks to suck.
It's, when our founding fathers revolted and took our country from the King of England, private people owned cannons.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we had our arsenals were purchased by private people. We had military grade weapons in the hands of the citizens, muskets, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the military grade weapon at the time, and we owned cannons. Like,
And they had
private
reciprocating
citizens
guns
owed
as well.
cannons.
And actually,
and ships with cannons.
Yeah.
and more specifically, private citizens in many cases had better weapons in the military because the muskets that were being used by the British military were horribly inaccurate. But many of the American citizens had rifles that were grooved, so they were more accurate than what the British had.
Do you know
So
who made those?
I assume someone in York County.
The Free family. It's my mom's side of the family.
There we go.
Actually, Lancaster based.
Lancaster based.
Yeah.
But so you even actually had the citizenry was better armed than the British militia or the British
Who
military.
were the greatest military at the time.
Right.
The greatest.
And that was done out of a necessity to live and thrive in America. We had to find better weaponry, and we did. And that's American ingenuity.
And even after the Revolutionary War, too, there were merchant ships that were being under attack by pirates. And a lot of those merchant ships wrote to the U.S. government saying, like, hey, can we put cannons on our boats? Is that allowed? And the U.S. government wrote back, and, our founding fathers wrote back to them saying, yeah, that's what the Second Amendment was for, to help you protect yourselves and not only against these pirates, but against us, too. So,
So it's a foundation, and that I think that's a big rub with American citizens and these extremist Democrat policies. We'll protect the elitists and leave everybody. It's just a real shame, and it's a frustrating part that the simple God-given rights are taken away because of bad extremist Democrat policies in these large urban cities. Hopefully there's an awakening and they realize that one-party rule for the past 20 and 30 years has not worked, and voters take a very different direction. And it would be a smart thing to start that in 2024 because there's nothing that says that sends a message more than, unfortunately, the presidential election.
Well, there is some hope out there right now. I mean, when you look at Philadelphia and what Mayor Parker's done the last couple of her budget's no longer funding needle exchanges. What did she say about SEPTA? People aren't going to ride it unless they feel safe.
Right.
Which is a complete 180 from
She
the
wants
rule
to
that was there.
restart the stop and frisk.
Right.
They're Philly's problems. Their district attorney doesn't want to prosecute anyone.
and
Correct.
even in New York, you have the mayor of New York having their National Guard down in the subway stations checking people's bags.
Not
there's
very effectively, but yes.
Right. But it just shows you how bad it's gotten under Democratic regimes all across this country. You look at just the homeless issue that leads to crime and violence and no one wanting to be there. I mean, mass exodus of Californians to Idaho. Like, people are leaving California for Idaho. I've never been to Idaho. I'm sure it's a great state, but like
Lots of corn.
I think
potatoes.
of sunny, like happening, like edgy California. We're like, we're done. We're going to Idaho for some potatoes. Like, it just blows my mind. But that's how bad things are getting because of this Democrat regime. The problem is those people, when they move, keep voting for the same crap too. Like, wake up.
Yep.
You got to wake up. Like, you can't keep voting for the same thing and expect changes. It's very frustrating.
So what's going on with Reggie?
I don't know who this Reggie guy is, but apparently he is awful.
He's the worst.
Awful. No, so Reggie is an acronym for the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It was put in place by Governor Wolf via executive fiat. It is a tax. The Commonwealth Court tossed it. It was appealed by the Shapiro administration to the Supreme Court. It is about a $633 million energy tax on the citizens of Pennsylvania. It will shut down our base load natural gas, coal power plants. So we'll have less energy, which was going to be a higher cost energy, plus a tax on top of that, plus loss of jobs. It's just awful all around. Virginia got out of theirs when Youngkin came in. Just was it last week before, Governor Shapiro came up. Here's my new plan. Instead of a $600 million tax, I want a $200 to $300 million tax, and then I'll get rid of Reggie. Like, he's holding Pennsylvania hostage to get what he wants, which is really sad. Now, when he ran for office, he was against it. I oppose Reggie. And
Surprise, surprise. Governor Shapiro
at
going
any
back on
point, he
campaign
could order
promises.
DP like that. Get rid of it. Rescind the reg. We're done. and he hasn't. He wants to. It's a hostage. It is a hostage.
So what is his
Governance by
alternative
hostage.
here that he's holding it hostage
So,
for?
I mean, his alternative, it's similar. It's a cap and trade program. It is going to cost a tax.
Excuse me, cap and invest.
Oh, yes, it's always an invest. Cap and invest. Everything's an investment now. But it will end up it being a tax increase on the citizens. That's what it comes back to. It's going to lead to higher energy costs. It's going to lead to less energy creation. It's going to shut down our base load, which is problematic for our manufacturing base, light industrial base, et cetera, because they rely on energy to manufacture products and stuff. So it's a bad policy all
What's
around.
it going to mean for consumers?
Oh, your electricity prices will go up because there'll be less electricity. So it's just demand. Plus, it'll be higher taxes. So you get a double whammy as consumers. You get a higher price electricity with a higher tax.
But the governor says it's going to lower prices.
Yeah, so he wants to take your money, bring it to Harrisburg, and redistribute it. And somehow, like, if that's your plan, just don't do the tax in the first place.
Sounds like communism with extra steps.
Right? Right? We're going to make communism more communist.
So hold on a second. We're going to tax an industry. We're going to take that money to Harrisburg, and we're then going to return that money to you. Sounds an awful lot like property tax relief that was supposed to come from gaming, doesn't it?
Right.
How did that work out?
Right.
Not
Maybe,
very well.
Right. Maybe we'll hit $1 billion this year. We're advocating for $1 billion at least to meet that Governor Rendell mark. So, yeah, that's kind of what's happening in Harrisburg. Governor doesn't care about the border. Wants to continue having fentanyl from Mexico come up and kill our citizens. He wants massive energy tax increases on the citizens. And by the way,
but the House Democrats seem to have a little bit of a change of heart on that, right?
right, like this week they passed 2 bills. One would help the coal industry burn more fossil fuels to extract coal, and the other was a PIT income tax deduction, basically for farmers on their well sites to help depreciate the value and give them some bucks back. But both are very pro fossil fuel.
So we're helping the coal industry and we're helping the natural gas industry.
Right.
But more specifically, the mom and pop natural gas industry, the
Right.
folks that, have a well pad on their own property. They're the ones who are going to see the relief. But either way, House Democrats allowing 2 bills to come before the chamber that help the Pennsylvania fossil fuels industry.
Even more of a shock, the House Democrats voted to cut mass transit funding in the Appropriations Committee, too.
You gotta explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so the same bill we were talking, the depreciation on income tax to help farmers and the natural gas industry, they shoved a bill in there to give a bailout to the SEPTA mass transit system because every other mass transit agency really hasn't said anything. But they shoved this in. It was a 2% increase. And then the next day, they did an amendment to cut it by $41 million to go to 1.75% increase. So they literally cut. And remember, these are the same people. Like, even though it's an increase, you cut the increase.
No, they cut it.
Right,
They
it's cut.
They cut the funding. To be
and
clear,
then they brought it
cut
out. There's no fare increase at the local level, right? So SEPTA, all these transit agencies aren't increasing their fares to fill revenue shortage. The bill itself told there's supposed to be a 15% match to local governments. They nixed that for 5 years. So there's no local increase match requirement. So it's just state dollars. It's a state bailout. And they actually, I think they barely passed. I think it was like 106 to.
and the problem too is that it's probably unconstitutional.
Right, because you're merging sales tax, because we have a requirement that everything has to be single subject, so it has to contain one subject. You have income tax, you have sales tax, you have a depreciation of gas wells, and you have mass transit funding. What do any of those have in common?
They're both written by Democrats.
There you go.
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
the underlying bill, the gas, was
Republican
actually
bill.
a Senate Republican
No,
bill.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So you're looking at they're basically sending over a bill that they've amended in a way that they know is not legal to the Senate, and then when the Senate says we can't even pass this because it doesn't pass constitutional muster.
Right.
They're going to complain, oh, well, the Senate's sitting on this bill. The Senate's sitting on this bill. Well, they're sitting on a bill that you sent them in an unconstitutional way.
Even better, the majority leader said, we need to deal with this, and the Senate Republicans refused to. Senate Republicans offered this as a deal last budget, and the House Democrats didn't take it because they didn't want to trade for it. So you want to blame anybody for not bailing out SEPTA? You can blame the House Democrats.
Failed leadership over
Failed
and over
leadership.
again.
And that's what we're seeing time and time again.
Grove Unleashed.